Mrs. Nolan? Mrs. Chestnut?
Here.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Here.
Mr. Miranda?
Here. Thank you. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to have a motion for the approval of the agenda tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ray, call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan? Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting, March 17th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Seeing no discussion, call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Need approval for the minutes of the special board meeting conducted on March 22nd, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Neither.
Gonna get you a battery.
There you go.
I could hear the tap. I can hear it. It's just low.
And I am green now. Thank you very much. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Mr. Spicer?
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. It is my privilege to introduce Mr. Josh Kaufman, Director of Fine Arts Extracurriculars this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Spicer. Board of Education, it's always a privilege to recognize our student artists and extracurricular activities at each month's board meeting. Tonight, first I'd like to invite Jacob Hams. He's our student council president at the high school, and he's early on the docket because we have senior awards tonight, and he doesn't always wear a bow tie, but he is because he's receiving some awards this evening. So Jacob would like to share with you what student council has been up to at the high school.
Thank you. Yes. So as Mr. Kaufman mentioned, my name is Jacob Hams, and I'm the senior class president and student council president at the high school. And so the first thing I'm really excited to share about with you tonight is one of our ongoing projects that we've been working on this year, and that is the development of our Student Leadership Center. So these pictures you see here has been typically for the last 10 years, ever since the last really renovation to the high school was done. This space has been dedicated to student council for storage for things like homecoming, different prop decorations. And so you can imagine over the last 10 or so years, it's started to accumulate lots of interesting things, things that we don't necessarily need anymore. And so one of the things moving into this year we started to reflect on was that this is really a huge space and we're not really making the most of it. And so we began this project to begin to look at how do we transform this into a space that's dedicated for students and student leadership at the high school. As student council, it's really great that we have opportunities to do great things, plan really cool projects for the high school. But the flip side of that, too, is that we have opportunities to grow our skills as leaders. And so taking the space, you can click to the next slide, we began to clear it out, clean it up, and really turn it into what could be a really great space just dedicated to students, the student body, using that to further leadership. And so you click to this final slide. This is what it looks like now. So we've been able to use some of our student council funding and different resources at the high school to put this space together and really turn it into a space for the future where clubs, different organizations, student council can meet, brainstorm, come up with ideas, and ultimately grow as leaders and really benefit the school. So that's been sort of our main project, and then other great things we've been working on over the last couple of months. Right before spring break, we had the opportunity to host Milford Means All Week at the high school. So this was a week dedicated to celebrating inclusion at the high school, recognizing all different aspects of diversity at our high school, from different types of people all the way down to, some students do sports, some students do theater, different opportunities like that. And so it all accumulated with our Milford Means All pep rally, which happened on the Friday of that week, where the entire school got together to really just celebrate the different student groups at the high school. And it was just a really good opportunity to boost the community at the high school coming out of COVID, where we haven't been as connected. Finally, moving into sort of the rest of the year and what looks like next week, we're hosting an Art Spirit Week at the high school. In preparation for the art show, we're working with the art department to put on some different art spirit days to get people excited for that. And then finally, we'll conclude the year with teacher appreciation. So that's just a little bit about what's been happening with Student Council.
Thank you, Jacob. If there's ever a question, I know we talk a lot about a portrait of an eagle or what our graduates look like at graduation. Jacob Hams is a tremendous example of a Milford Eagle. So thank you, Jacob. This project, I should mention too, was 100% funded through fundraisers that Student Council has done over the years, and it was 100% student-led. So all I did was write the purchase orders. They took care of the rest. So congratulations. That's a really impressive project. I'd now like to recognize our student artists this month, and this month we are celebrating student artists from McCormick Elementary. So step on up. We have two of our student artists that could not be with us this evening. Dean Donovan, he's a sixth grader. Dean's artwork is here. And Maddie Long, her artwork is here. She's a fifth grader. But our first student that is present tonight is Caitlin Ward. And Caitlin drew this beautiful and warm summery colors with pastels, I believe. Correct? Congratulations. And then we have Marlo Paul. Marlo is a third grader. She drew the pumpkin image here. Congratulations. Well done. Nolan Hartigan is the artist of Turkey. Awesome. Congratulations. Well done, and Cora Boothby has the watercolor on the left that I think you can't help but look at and smile. So congratulations, Cora. Congratulations to all of our student artists from McCormick. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for being here this evening. Really appreciate it. And just a couple other highlights. I know Jacob mentioned a few things. Senior awards sponsored by the senior class and many of our community partners and scholarship donors are occurring in just a short time over at the high school, where they will be awarding several $100,000 worth of scholarships, local and otherwise. I know that it's going to be referenced later, but last month you had a preview performance of The Little Mermaid. We are happy to report that all three performances of The Little Mermaid sold out, and to our knowledge, that's the first time in school history that we've ever sold out every performance. So thank you to those of you that could make it. Our choir completed a successful trip to Nashville, where they had opportunities to perform at the Grand Ole Opry, the Ryman Auditorium, Vanderbilt University, and historic RCA Studio B. It was a tremendous experience. Saturday evening, if you are a prayerful person, I genuinely ask for prayers for our 600 students that will be attending the Milford High School prom this year. As a prior high school principal, that's always a sleepless night for me, and our students could certainly use all of the good hope and prayers. And then finally, just to invite everyone, next weekend is our District Fine Arts Fair on Friday evening from 6 to 8 and on Saturday from 10 to 2 in the Milford High School cafeteria, where we will be highlighting over 1,500 pieces of student artwork from students K through 12 throughout our district. So hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman.
Okay, let's move on to the treasurer's report. Mr. Rabe? Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Public commentary, do we have anyone?
We do. Rebecca Bourne.
Okay.
Wait,
And Brian,
It's technology, it's not my friend.
not moving.
I'm excited to see the proposal of a Citizens Advisory Committee. I look forward to seeing that develop and am interested in participating. I'm also grateful to have seen the board policy for selection of instructional materials to better grasp how it works. Social emotional learning has had much controversy. Before making decisions about it, I wanted to see what Milford was using. To that end, I had the privilege of meeting with Paul Daniels, Jenny Berkeley, and Will Cates. The meeting was instructional and extremely helpful. I was shown materials, was able to ask many questions, and came away feeling confident that the material I saw was helpful and not of the controversial nature. We have had ongoing discussions for which I'm grateful. I do want to reiterate, however, my concern about SEL surveys being given to all students. When you give a child a survey, it feels like a test, and it has the potential to put them on edge and make them wonder if they're doing something wrong and may question themselves when there was no reason to do so. But I'm actually more concerned about the collection of the data. I've been reassured that the data is handled with great care and not put in student folders. I am concerned about the precedent set about surveillance data and how it's being utilized by Panorama. Panorama has some bias filters and some disturbing surveys, and I did hear a willingness to explore other options, and I appreciate that. But we also know that once data is released, we really have no control over what's done with it. The Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment addresses the use of surveys in the classroom. It states that parents must be notified of any surveys being given and have the ability to opt out. I do know Milford allows for opt-out. I don't know if there's a notification given to parents before each survey. As the younger grades count on teacher observation to identify students struggling, I'm suggesting that the surveys be limited and we continue to use teacher observations for any deeper referral. Nancy Lever, who is the co-director of the National Center for School Mental Health at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, states, teachers are critical to identifying students who need mental health support. My suggestions don't just come only as a concerned citizen. I have a bachelor's degree in education, a master's in social work. I have been contracted by Beach Acres, the Juvenile Detention Facility in Claremont County, and St. Joseph Orphanage. All that diversity allows me to look at issues from a lot of perspectives. And so I respectfully ask the leadership of the Milford School Board and the community to review this concern about surveys. Make a decision not based on what is being suggested by a state or national organization or even funding, but to think critically and make a decision based on what is best for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the first time we got to use the countdown clock, and we're going to wait till it beeps. There's the beep. Oh, you had 12 seconds left, Rebecca. Do we have anyone else?
That's all I had.
Okay.
For the first one.
For the first one, thank you. Okay, now let's move forward to the treasurer's report, Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. First item is the approval of the financial reports for the month ending March 31st, 2022.
So moved. Sorry.
Need a motion to approve the financial reports for for the end of March.
So moved.
Second.
The only discussion I have is I'm glad you're anxious and chomping at the bit there. Any other discussion?
Just a couple items to point out. We are 75% of the year completed. General fund is at 69, roughly 70%. A couple items, if you look at it, currently at the end of March, we had $180 million in the bank. It's kind of a little misleading because we had the bond issue, plus we had the note, and the note didn't come due till April. So it's a little bit overinflated for the time being, but obviously that will fall next month. Also, I wanted to point out that in the month of March, we did receive the final settlements on real estate property taxes from both Claremont County and Hamilton County. This was an increase of about $600,000 over what we received last year. And then finally, interest on the month was $32,000 with $211,000 on the year. And in the bond fund, just shy of $700 and $9,000 on the year.
Any other discussion? Call a roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
The next item is the Appropriations Resolution.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the appropriations resolution as received.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
The two additional increases on the appropriations resolution were for extended day. Just, they're taking in additional money than they have in the past, so we need to increase their appropriation limit. The other one is Title 6B, which is for special ed funding. This was a federal grant that we get from the federal government.
Okay, any other discussion? Call a roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Next item is the approval of the MOU with MEA for payment of officers.
I need a motion to approve the MEA MOU for the payments of our union officers.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
This is an MOU that we do each year. The MEA pays their union membership, their leadership. We run it through our payroll so that the retirement gets picked up, and then they reimburse the district for the full cost of running this through our payroll. But this is an annual MOU that we do each year.
Any other discussion? Call a roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
The next item is the approval of disposal of fixed assets, 60 warm-up jackets and pants, as well as 20 duffel bags. And I believe these are for track warm-ups.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the disposal of fixed assets, basically for track warm-up pants and duffels.
So moved.
Second.
The track team will actually try to sell them. The reason to dispose of them, they have the old logo on them, so they will try to sell them. If they can't sell them, obviously they'll donate them and give them away. Obviously, we don't want them to end up in the dumpster. We want the kids to have those.
Okay, any other discussion? Call a roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yep.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
The final item is the approval of donations, a $1,500 donation from Bob Burkle for the flight program, and a $10,000 donation from the athletic boosters for baseball and softball netting.
Need a motion to approve the two donations as Mr. Brabe just reviewed.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Call a roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Move ahead to the superintendent's business, Mr. John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. We do have a first reading of the policies 1 through 5 that were covered in our policy committee. So that is just a first reading of those. Under item 2, we do have a second reading, policies for your approval. Those policies 1 through 5 asking for your approval at this time.
Okay, we have a series of policies for approval, 5 of them. I need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
Just a reminder for everyone that we meet in committees prior to this week, and we spend a collection of hours on these items. I've said this before. I just want another brief reminder that all of this has been discussed and it's open to the public. So I'm going to encourage any and everyone, if you have interest in a policy, if you have interest in finances with the school, if you have interest in curriculum, there's a number of committees that meet, and I'm going to encourage you to show up. You'll learn a lot more than the proverbial parrot head saying yes to just about everything up here. So again, I'm going to encourage you to show up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Where are we? We need to call the roll, correct?
Right. Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes. Very good point, that we do need to encourage people to come, and these are public notices go
Correct.
out for this, so that the public
Yes.
is notified of each of the committee meetings prior to, and it's all in numeric order and on time order, so they know when, in order which is first through last, so we appreciate it if they would attend.
Hope there's no offense to my fellow board members about being called parrot heads.
Only if it's Jimmy Buffett Day.
I'm an old Jimmy Buffett fan.
Under item 3, it's just an informational item that I wanted to push out to the public, make them aware, as Rebecca Bourne mentioned, which I am excited about, the Citizens Advisory Commission. As you'll see in the public content there, the commission is a way for us, through the use of our expert community resources, be responsible for conducting research on identified priorities, reporting such findings, and making suggestions or recommendations to the superintendent and/or the Board of Education. I'll be pushing that out in the next couple weeks through our website, other means, et cetera, to all of our families. And we're also looking for community members, business members as well. This will probably end up being about 20 people on this commission. And so I'm looking forward to that. Just wanted everyone to know that that was coming.
And I'm going to make a comment that this is not the same as, but similar to what we did with the CAT team when we were trying to figure out how to right-size the bond. And the end result of that was community gave us their thought process, and we were able to comply with that and to pass the bond by a sizable margin. So
It-
it's a good thing to get this going and keep it going on long term.
It is an opportunity for us to get some diverse thought in the room, but also make sure that we have representation from every elementary. We have 6 elementary schools, the junior high, the high school, the academy, preschool. So we're going to make sure that we have representation from those places and then others as well. So it's a great opportunity for us. I'm excited to bring it on. I know that there are others, commissions out there in different school districts. I know that there's a neighboring district. One thing they tried to tackle and what they have tackled is school start times. We've done that before, so that's certainly, I don't think that'll be one of the items that we'll use this commission for, but certainly could be something similar to that. So looking forward to that opportunity.
John, can you tell me a little bit about the time commitment? People who are thinking about doing it, like how many meetings?
Thank you.
And how long?
Yeah, so, we're looking minimally quarterly, potentially monthly, but certainly it's a 2-year commitment. I would like for those folks that are selected to be on it to be committed to 2 years. I think, for the first commission, we'll have to take a look at how do we keep half on, so maybe half of the folks would only be a 1-year commitment, and then we would rotate some new folks in, and then half would still be, we'd have half new and then half that have been on for a year. And so we need to try to rotate that so that, similar to the Board of Education, you have 3 and 2 that come on and off. So I'd like to try to do that. It is a 2-year commitment, minimally quarterly, potentially monthly. And I would maybe propose we take July off. So
John, can you share the selection process of landing
I
on those
can.
20 as well as when we're going to get started?
So I'm working on some bylaws that I have, and I want to make sure that this thing is buttoned up, if you will. And so membership would be done through a Google form. We would just collect names. What's your relationship to the district? Is it a parent, guardian, employee, community member, business owner, or other? Do you have an association with one of our schools? So you might want to check those off. And why are you interested in joining this commission? And then maybe I have this idea of maybe finding out what other community volunteer groups that folks are involved in. And then also, what do you think is the most important issue concerning our schools that that this commission would want to take a look at? And so we'll push that out. 1 to 2 weeks, I'll push that out and make a decision on whether that's something we would start, June, or is that something we might wait until August? So still in the early phases of that.
Obviously, I think it's a great idea. The more community involvement we have in educating our children and giving their feedback for any type of proposed change, the better. So if you're interested in your voice being heard, then I would just encourage everyone to participate. What comes out of this citizens community is going to be a very loud voice for the board. I'll share that with you. So it's one of our more formalized conduit to the community, and it's something that you can actually have discussion with others in your neighborhoods and friends and barbecues to let them know some of the changes you're proposing. So I'm encouraging all of you to think hard and participate, involve.
I just want to echo thank you for doing this. I think it's great. I'm a big proponent of as many people being involved as they can be, and input and feedback and all that, so I think it's good.
Do we know who's going to be involved from a leadership standpoint on these committees?
Yes, I will facilitate. Currently, the bylaws in there have where this commission would select a president, vice president, and a secretary. That would not be me, but I would be the facilitator. And then certainly members of my cabinet as well would be, depending on maybe the topic, they would be present as well. And certainly board members would be invited as well. You're not making any decisions, so you're allowed to attend. So yeah, we would want you to be there too if you can be there as well. Any other questions on that? All right, thank you. Item number 4 under Superintendent's business is the WHAM Awards. That's the Milford Miami Township Chamber Awards that were voted on by the greater community. And the district did have some honors. I'm very proud that we did win large business. The Milford schools also won for the adaptation during COVID. We also had the best preschool extended day. And then we also had the best band. So very proud of those honors. We do have these awards up here if folks want to see them. But we're certainly grateful for that recognition by the chamber and also the community at large.
Okay, thank you, and I'll allow you to continue on and with
All right, thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. Under item number 1, asking your approval of the job description for the Assistant Athletic Director.
Need a motion to approve the job description for the assistant athletic director as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
I wanted to say, I think that Aaron's not here, but I think that this position is a really good combination. We're not fully funding it as a brand-new position, but instead we're able to consolidate some of the pieces. So I think it was a good look at the resources we need and combining the financials to get this to happen.
Thank you for that. We were purposeful in making sure that we educated the board on why we wanted it. Didn't want to bring something to you right away. Certainly not in January with new board members, and so we're very pending voting here. We're very appreciative of the board listening to Aaron's needs and the athletic program in general.
And John, he's going to start soon. Is that right?
It's actually a she.
Oh, I thought it was a man.
It
I thought
is-
in our meeting we talked about.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. It's actually Corbin is in there, and she will likely have some June hours as well. Yes.
So she will start in June.
She will start. Yes, sir.
Apologies, Corbin.
It's all right.
Okay, we need roll call.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes?
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 2, we do have an administrative approvals. I would like to comment once we get the motion on these 2 items, A and B.
Yes, need a motion to approve administrative personnel resignations and,
So moved.
Second?
more technical difficulties. Discussion, please.
If I may, under item A1, Jerry Levy, our Director of Nutrition Services, is going to be retiring after 20 years of service to the district. Jerry has transformed the nutrition program here at Milford and throughout Southwest Ohio. She'll be a great loss to us, and we wish her nothing but the best as she moves on into retirement. I know that she plans to travel and has been learning some Mandarin as well, so hopefully she'll be able to get to practice that Mandarin soon.
And
So-
we've had some people in training here for a while with her too,
Correct, yes. We do have an assistant.
so that we don't
nutrition-
lose that knowledge.
Correct.
Yeah, 20 years, that's a great time. Jerry's a great individual.
I wanted to quickly say, before you move on to the next one, I don't think our nutrition services get enough applause for everything we do. And for anybody who is anywhere, when I'm serving on Claremont County Board of DD, they're using Milford now. There are a lot of schools that really look not only to use our services, but to, ask how we set that up. And she's just done an amazing job. A lot of districts lose money on nutrition, and it ends up being cost for the district, and Milford is not that way. So she's done amazing, but I know she's a wallflower and would never want to be here and hear that.
Just a sincere congrats for her. Just a tip of the cap send-off. It's fantastic.
Those are all my comments. I'm going to do the next one after you vote yes, hopefully.
Okay. So we're going to split this up for the vote?
No need to split it. I'm just going to make my comments afterwards on item B1.
So
You need to call the roll.
So are we now voting on A and B?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask Paul to comment quickly on item B? If he's in the room.
Paul.
Daniels.
Well, actually, Jenny is going to do an introduction, and then Krista's going to actually,
Okay, I'll leave that alone then.
okay. So you want to do that now? Jenny, let's
Let's
do
do
it
it.
now.
All right, let's no
So
wait.
that's why you're standing there.
That is, yes.
Before
I
we
wanted
go.
somebody to talk about Krista, and it's you.
Yes.
Good.
And I want to echo congratulations to Jerry. So I've worked with Jerry for many years, and she really has, as they shared, our food service department covers Madeira, it covers Finneytown. They took a Norwood just this year, I believe. She has several parochial schools. So Jerry is quite a salesperson, if you will. So we are excited for the transition and worked hard to keep the good practices that she has in place with the assistant director, and they're working seamlessly to continue that good work. So, and just to go back to the assistant athletic director, Corbin currently is one of the stipends of the assistant athletic directors that we will be absorbing that Ms. Chestnut talked about. So she's got some experience, and she came out as the fit for that position. So her position and another small stipend athletic director will be absorbed, and then, as we talked, hopefully reduce greatly the amount of site supervision that's needed. So she officially will start July 1, and she's currently in the role now, and so she was probably at a game tonight, or she would have been here. So she's excited for that. She's a UC grad in sports administration. So good evening again. The district completed a comprehensive and rigorous interview process to hire our new Director of Communications and Public Relations. We are grateful for the strong quality candidate pool, which allowed our committee to find what we believe to be the very best fit for Milford. Sharing our amazing story is both one of the most important pieces to help us stay connected to our school community, and also the best way to highlight the great work of our staff and students that they do every day. With that, I'm excited to introduce Ms. Krista Boyle as our Director of Communications and Public Relations. Krista comes to us from Cincinnati Public Schools, where she has been serving in the same role and also brings experience within a large corporation, serving as the VP of Global Communications and was staffed to Representative Rob Portman. She also serves on various community organizations. So with no further ado, welcome to Ms. Krista Boyle.
Thank you, everybody. I'm so excited to be here tonight. So I grew up in Milford. I chose to live in Milford as an adult, so to say that I'm honored and excited would be an understatement, and I'm just really, I can't say enough how excited I am to get started and to work with everyone in this room and beyond. So thank you so much.
You can't let her off that easy. She walked away from the microphone. No questions?
My comment is, Krista, welcome. We're excited to have you. I've looked at your resume and I'm thoroughly impressed.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm not sure how they talked you into this, but we're really happy that you're here. And I think we know some similar colleagues from the Corporate Executive Board in
Oh,
Gardner.
great.
So I saw that on your LinkedIn profile. So welcome again. We're excited about some of the things you can help us with this year.
It's great. It's good to be home. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I was on the committee with Dave on the communications, and Krista just blew us away. She is an amazing get for us, and I'm really excited to work with her. She has a large passion for our community, and that really shone through in her interview. So I'm looking forward to her telling some great stories about our school.
It's great. You guys are making me look forward to board meetings. This is fabulous.
The bar is very high for you.
You know, and I served on that, as you said. The takeaway for me not only was the qualifications and how we know you're going to be successful here, but the number of quality applicants that we had for this position. I think that speaks a lot to people wanting to be a part of this district, and that's an important thing for our community to hear. We had some outstanding candidates. You rose to the top. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And don't lose sight of the fact that people want to come here.
We had 6 candidates that all could have done the job, but probably not as good as what Krista's about to do. And she does have some very, very large shoes to fill. Interim Director Melinda Briggs will be leaving us at some point, so we're grateful for Melinda being here as well.
And just in case we don't get a chance to say something nice about Ms. Briggs here, she's done an outstanding job, stepped in when we needed someone, and has done an incredible job. And I just look forward to seeing that get transferred on over to Krista, and then we just move forward. Okay, we have one more thing to do, and that's call the roll, correct?
Correct. Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under number 3, certified personnel approvals, we have items A through G, and we do have numerous retirements that I would like to recognize before we do that. We do have Myra Powers will be retiring, 40 years of service.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Thank you to Myra. Grace Wenstrup, teacher at Pattison, retiring with 20 years of service in Milford. Scrolling through, I think that's it for certified. Amazing.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the certified personnel changes that are listed here, items A through G.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
Yes, I would just like to personally say congratulations to Myra Powers. I think 40 years in teaching is amazing, and if you talk to Mrs. Powers, she will tell you she has done just about every level of teaching at Milford, and she is very passionate about her job. I was very lucky to have her as my son's teacher in Eagle Online last year and again this year. Her dedication to her profession is just beyond compare. She always puts in a little extra to make sure that the kids are really enjoying what they're doing. And I think we need more teachers like Mrs. Powers because she's just amazing. So congratulations on your retirement.
Cheers. I'd like to echo that too. I had very much a similar experience, Mrs. Powers, as a teacher for my kid, and Mrs. Wenstrup, who apparently has been sending books home with my daughter. She kept getting books in her bag, and I was like, where are you getting these books from? I finally figured out because they're Noisy Nora and Nora the Great Bear, and they're stories with characters named Nora. So I think it's very nice that Mrs. Wenstrup is cleaning out her classroom and kind of sharing her love of reading and her gifts with kids.
Yeah. Congrats to both. Outstanding.
40 years is a long, long time. Okay, any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 4, exempt personnel approvals, we are asking for your approval of item A, 1 and 2.
Need a motion to approve the exempt personnel changes or additions here as written.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 5, classified personnel approvals, we have items A through D. I'd also like to recognize some of our classified staff for the years of service as they go off into retirement as well. Jeannie Bailey, 22 years. Daryl Couch, 15 years of service. Margie Fisher, 25 years of service. Judy Hackmeister, 10 years of service. Mary Jane Isles, 30 years of service. Becky Yauk, 25 years of service. Carol Loving, 42 years of service. Yeah, just when you thought 40 was high, 42 years. David Ross will be retiring as well with 19 years of service to the district. And Mary Stocker will be retiring with 5 years of service for the district. Items A through D.
I need a motion to approve the classified personnel changes as Mr. Spicer just laid out.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Just another thank you for all. I mean, Mrs. Loving, 42 years. My son had her. It's amazing. So, yeah. Congrats to all.
Amen. I thought 40 was a long time. 42 is even longer. Congratulations to everybody. Mr. Rabe, you ready to call the roll?
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 6, supplemental personnel approvals, asking for your approval of items A through D.
We need a motion to approve supplemental personnel changes as outlined in items A through D.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Under item B, Brandon Baker, your boys varsity basketball coach, is coming home, Milford grad. So we're super proud to have him back. There was an evening at Skyline to meet the coach as well last week. So super excited to get Brandon back.
Yeah, I got to go down and they actually had speakers set up down there and handed him a microphone. And he got to talk for a little while, and then the crowd got to ask some questions. So that was a fun evening and a great way to welcome him home. And he had his name up on the Skyline marquee, which is, you don't get that every day.
You do not.
But, you know, sports is such an important part of the fabric of this community, and having somebody come back that was such a great player in the high school level and the college level, just really excited about how he's going to take this program to another level for us. So this is a great hire. We had a lot of interest in this position. I forget how many initial applicants, John, do you remember?
Jenny, initial applicants.
Yeah, 30 to 40. So there's 30 to 40 that appeared to be qualified basketball coaches for this role. And just congrats, Brandon. We're looking forward to some wins.
Again, another example of people wanting to come here to work in our district. Any other discussion? Mr. Rabe, call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under number 7, unpaid leave of absence, asking for your approval of item A1.
Okay, I need a motion to approve an unpaid leave of absence as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. We now have the curriculum and instruction section of our program. Again, once Mr. John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda. Members of the board, asking for your approval of foreign exchange student under item 1, Diego Sevillano Gomez of Spain and Johanna Gotsk of Denmark to attend Milford High School as foreign exchange students for the 22-23 school year. In accordance with our Board of Policy JECBA, and we will not be able to accept any more students at this time. We have met the policy max unless you decide to change that.
Need a motion to approve the foreign exchange students as listed, 2 of them, which brings our total to 4.
Yes, sir.
And that was last year that we made that change from 2 to 4, if I remember correctly.
It was last year, correct, Paul? I can pull the policy up and look when the last time it was. Yep.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? You got a little bit of a profile on them, John?
Diego likes to play basketball, and I asked Paul if he was 6'8" or 9" or something like that. They're into. Joanna is into community service, et cetera. We can get you more specific profile stuff, if you will, but that's the gist of it. They would just want to be involved. These are young people that want to be involved in the community and fine arts and athletics as well.
Okay. Any other comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 2, approval of curriculum pay, items 1 and 2. Asking for your approval.
Need a motion to approve the changes to curriculum pay as outlined here.
Second?
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Do you have one informational item? I'm going to ask Mr. Daniels to step up to the podium microphone to talk about the process in Board Policy 2A.
Good evening, President Miranda, members of the board. Just want to go over a few details this evening. We normally would be asking you this evening to approve the Norton Anthology to purchase for the 9th through 12th grade ELA adoption. However, we are not doing that this evening because while it is not in our policy, we are doing a 30-day preview here at the board office for parents, which is specific in our policy, for parents to be able to inspect instructional materials. So what we have set up out front is we have 2 copies of the book. We have a paper survey just for parents or our community members to give their feedback so that we can move forward and see how we can make some changes. I know that this year there has been some criticism of some of our books and maybe some criticism that we haven't moved fast enough, but curriculum in our district is adopted on a 5-year cycle. We simply just cannot throw it out, go out and purchase new materials and start. So I first want to say that we did convene our curriculum committee, which is our 18 ELA teachers at the high school, plus our Milford Academy teacher. They have to work feverishly all year to try to move in a different direction. So we have typically not chosen an anthology. The Norton Anthology is in its 14th edition. It is considered canon, meaning it has a lot of traditional Ray Bradbury-esque type pieces of small literature. So we have been working to change the way we, I don't want to say teach, but look at literature. Our teachers have been working really hard with the Ohio Writing Project from Miami, Beth Reimer, to do some professional learning together to move more to this anthology and then moving more to choice. So a really good example is you might read a 5-page composition in this anthology about imagery, and then students who have chosen their own independent reading books will then talk in groups or put a post-it note on the placard and talk a little bit about how imagery exists inside of their own personal choice novel. The first Norton Anthology of English was published in 1962, It's on a 5-year revision cycle where Norton seeks feedback from 500 to 600 practitioners who review each title from the table of contents. The works are considered canonical when they are widely viewed by critics as essential readings. So you will see in this anthology traditional titles as well as contemporary authors speaking to the modern moment. Norton does not stray into partisan politics. They have long served as scholarly collections that both reflect the current debates in literary scholarship and contest the very nature of what is canonical. Norton understands that the complexity of our current social circumstances, making it a point to respect the wide gamut of ideas in our country. Norton understands the impact of studying the impact of contemporary literature movements while not becoming fixated on controversial politics. They really focus on connecting literary art to moments in time. There is a poem in there that's actually compared to Troy, asking students to look at something that is current within the last few years and then comparing that contextually to the Troy in our ancient world history. You will find authors such as Joyce Carol Oates, Edgar Allan Poe, Ray Bradbury, Nathaniel Hawthorne, John Donne, William Shakespeare, Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, John Milton, Robert Browning, Flannery O'Connor, and more. And again, its point is to study the impact on the history of art, not to tap into activist lessons planned to design to expose kids to politicized contexts in our country. There is no such thing as an unbiased text. This text is written 2,000 pages. It will have things, it is written in a nature that it's bought by every district in the country, meaning it has to speak to a wide audience. But again, we did work, our teachers have worked really hard, and this is fiscally responsible. It is 2,000 pages. There is an intent to use it for more than 10 years. It will be utilized in the classroom only, and it will be used each year, 10th to 11th, 11th to AP Literature, and then AP Literature to AP Lang. The other piece is it allows our children, as they move through our classrooms, to go back to what they studied in 10th grade and make connections to what they're doing in 11th grade. But our teachers have worked really hard. While the number of complaints is low, we do know that we need to make some changes, and I believe this is a first good step. But I know that we didn't move fast enough, but the danger is when you don't train and make sure people have the competencies to be successful, that hurts student achievement, and it hurts student engagement, and it hurts students' experiences. So we're ready. The high school is ready to move. After this 30-day preview, we will bring it back to you next month with a final purchase price, but we're looking at somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000, and to adopt a resource at the high school level that is very economical, especially when you broadcast that over a 10-year period, which means in 5 years when their revision comes back again, it is possible that they will not need anything other than maybe a few copies because they've been ruined over the years. So again, teacher-led, making sure that they understand and have the tools to be successful.
Are there any questions for Paul?
Paul, do you support this approach from Norton?
Absolutely. I absolutely think all of the kudos goes to the teachers. They understand where we are, what we're going through. And from a curriculum point, the ability to take a 3 or 4 page article, like we call that close reading, right, where you dive really into it and then allow students to connect it to what they're ultimately interested in, that's a win for us. That's a win for them. I mean, teachers, when they were in their training, that, you know, Beth Reimer is saying, you know, the best thing you could do is this, and they say, wow, I can't wait to do this. It's really hard work when you have kids reading 30 novels in a room. You're trying to make connections, but I absolutely support the professional judgment here.
I would just like to make a comment. I know that the reading material has been a hot topic this year, and I've been kind of continuing to question it. So I know that you've put a lot of effort into trying to meet the needs of the community at large and individual people that have contacted us, And so I know you guys have worked really hard, and I appreciate you listening to the feedback from the community and pivoting to hear them. So thank you.
And I appreciate that. And I know our teachers do too.
That picture that you had up there was actually actual size, I believe. That is a humongous book. It weighs about 10 or 12 pounds. I took it home for about a week and read different passages in it. There must be close to 1,000 passages, different assignments in there, Paul?
Yeah, it's about 2,000 pages. You would probably, there's 12 to 1,300 works in there. Some that are as short as 10 lines, some Bible verses to be exact. But again, we're not studying the Bible. We're studying the composition of the piece of work. And so you will find some as short as 10 lines, and you will find some acts from some plays as long as 25 pages. So I think it's just a real win. It's economical, and it's meeting the time. I think that's what's important.
You know, a lot of very diverse works in there. And if I understand it correctly, I can come in as a freshman if I were 60 years younger or 50 years younger. And I could use that as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, and you just go to different places in there as you move through the school, correct?
The goal is 10 through 12, 4 courses. Our 9th grade will continue to utilize. They've done a really good job with lit circles. Some of their lit circles have as many as 8 books. We've had a great year in 9th grade. We've had no feedback at all. We've had some struggles in 10 and a couple of our lit circle books at the junior high. But we're not there at the 6 through 8 level like we are at the 9, 12. We're still looking at materials. I know Rob is looking at materials for K-5, so it's just taking longer in COVID. It's harder to pull people out of school. It's to get subs and to do this work. And I think this slow burn and slow approach has actually been very beneficial for us.
I would just like to second Melissa's thanking.
I would just like to also thank Paul and all of the teachers who put in the work on this. I know it was a lot of work, and I really think that they have both our students' best needs at heart as well as our communities, and they have very much been responsive to the community's needs. And I appreciate that they are doing this with a lot of speed, but also making sure that they do it correctly. I think the partnership with the Cincinnati Writing Project is amazing, and I think some of the things that they're talking about doing with lit circles is a great solution to having a lot of diversity of materials for our students. So I think that they've responded very greatly to the community's concerns.
Thank you, Paul,
Thank you, Paul.
Betsy Woods, department chair at the high school, and all of the teachers as they dove into this. Good work.
Okay, let's move forward to item I, and business operations. Once again, Mr. John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. We do have items 1 and 2. Jeff is going to do also an update on the middle school project, and we're going to move that next month to the very beginning. So we've already started that agenda, so that will happen all the time, but that's in addition to what's here. Brian, talking to Jeff, we've got a different name that we need in this transportation impractical. So we're going to need to make a revision to the agenda. So someone's going to, is that me or does someone over there need to do it?
The board needs to make a motion to adjust the agenda first.
Okay, and it's just, it's an addition of a name or?
We have a different name that needs to go in there. It's not the one that's listed.
This name is incorrect.
That name is incorrect.
So motion to correct
So,
the name.
yeah.
Yeah,
Since
we
you
need a
approved-
motion, we need a motion to correct the name so we can deem impractical.
Correct.
So I'm looking for a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second.
No discussion? Call the roll.
Ms. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Thank you. And that name should be Maggie Wilson, St. Margaret of York.
We'll need to make a motion to add that name exactly, and then approve, then a second to approve.
Okay, that's what we're going to, just about ready to do here, so we need to add that name to the roll.
Correct.
So I need a motion to approve, to add that name to the, to item I-1.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes. Now I need a motion to approve transportation impractical for the individual we've just voted on twice.
So moved.
Second?
Call the roll, Mr. Ray.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, and I apologize for that.
Parliamentary law.
Item 2, we have a contract for stadium lights, and I have Mr. Jeff Johnson here to speak about the stadium lights and where we are with that.
So this has been a challenge for us for a couple of years. We have some lights that are out on the poles in Eagle Stadium. We've tried to fix them. We have been unsuccessful. I mean, we fixed some of them, but then not all of them. The current lights are approximately 35 years old. I can remember when the poles were still inside the track, but I was not old enough to remember it actually changing, to be honest with you. So we reached out and we've worked with, it's a big part of the overall, plans that we're trying to look for the long range up in that stadium. We've looked at potential bleachers and what we might put in there in the future for the south side of the stadium and making sure that the lights wouldn't, new lights wouldn't hamstring us moving forward. So we got this price. Currently, we have one light pole that has one light out. We have two light poles that have 5 lights out, and we have another pole that has 2 lights out. And again, with the age of these lights, it's really becoming a challenge to try to repair them, and have some concerns that we're going to get into a spot where it could potentially become not safe to play on that field because not having adequate lighting on there. So this will be coming in and installing new galvanized steel poles, 80-foot tall poles, and new LED lights that would go on there. About 75% less cost. Not that, it's not like our high school electric bill, but still, there's a significant cost savings with going to the LEDs. And then if you look at the price, there are a couple of adders that were quoted for some show light controls. We're not asking the district to pay for that, but we have been in some conversations with the boosters about picking up that adder to be able to do some fun stuff with those LEDs. And that would be done this summer and would be ready to go by the 1st of August when we roll into our fall sports season.
Jeff, I'm sorry. Can you speak before they ask questions about why we're at, first of all, it's been a process, so this is not new. So they've been aware, there's been conversation in buildings and grounds and finance. But the imperative for today's approval.
So if it does not get approved tonight, I actually have to have a contract in place with Musco by May 2nd, I believe. It's the first week of May, in order for them to be done by the 1st of August. And obviously, there's going to be some downtime. The electrical service comes in on the existing wood poles. Our plan to save some money is, and there's some speakers on the south poles, that we're going to leave a portion of those poles in place right now, so that we can save some money and we don't have to redo the electrical service and the speakers. But the poles will be, the northwest pole will be removed completely. The other 3 poles will be cut off to about 25 feet. Eventually, those will come out. We redo the bleachers. We'll eventually pull those out. But right now, the 3 of the 4 poles will stay at about 25 feet.
And what's does their life expectancy, so the last set lasted 35 years?
I mean, the steel poles are going to, I don't think anybody in this room will be alive still when those steel poles probably need to be replaced. Again, the wood poles have lasted about 35 years. We had them tested, I want to say like 10 years ago. We had a company come in and give us a report on the status of them. They were in decent shape now. I'm not worried about them like falling over next week by any stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, I wouldn't recommend to the board that we go spend all the money to put these lights in and put them on the old poles.
And we, I mean, this was talked about in the 2019 bond.
It was
and-
part of that, and we've had conversations off and on really since then. You know, we had some problems. You know, it's one of those things as you roll into fall typically with, you know, not that we'll be playing soccer games out there much anymore after we put the turf in at Charity Lucas, but, you know, there's a lot of activities, and in the summertime we do a lot of that maintenance if we've got some lights out. And that's really where, you know, we had some significant problems. You know, we sent somebody up there to climb those poles and changed out those lights, and they changed out ballast, they changed out a lot of things. There's kind of a rat's nest of wiring going up and down those poles, and they just couldn't get about 3 or 4 of those lights to work. So, you know, if anybody's, you know, pays attention to that when they're sitting at a Friday night football game, there were some lights out, and that's increased since last fall. And again, the concern is that we might get to a spot where, you know, we're just not going to have enough lights where it becomes a safe place for kids to play at night.
Jeff, can you talk a little bit about the selection of Musco?
Musco's really the leader in doing sports lighting across the nation. This is through a purchasing cooperative, so this pricing has been bid out and vetted through a purchasing cooperative called Sourcewell. We used that same purchasing cooperative when we replaced the bleachers in the high school gym a couple of years ago. So there is that vetting and that bidding process that goes through that purchasing cooperative. Our current lights are Musco. We've got current, at the football stadium, there's a controller that I can sit here, I can turn the lights on and off from my phone. Our athletic department does that with all the rentals and everything we have. They schedule those. And our plan is there'll be a new controller brought in with these new lights, and we're going to take the controller that is at the football stadium currently, and we're going to move it to Charity Lucas so that we'll have the ability to do that at Charity Lucas, which currently it's a manual operation up there. Thank you. And our staff will do that, so there won't be a cost to do it, other than obviously just their time.
We can train Corbin.
I'm sure that'll be part of what those responsibilities.
Yeah, when you look at those lights, if you've ever ridden down and gone real slow down Wolf Pen, and you turn and you look at the stadium, you'll see the light poles are like this. They're starting to bend. They're also starting to twist a little bit, and we've adjusted those over time, I think, right, Jeff?
I mean, when we've gone up there and done, you know, lighting replacements and stuff like that, you know, I mean, it's, again, I don't want to make it sound, I don't want to mislead anybody that it's not safe today, but I think it could get there quicker than we want it to.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
Any other questions? Okay, we need a motion to approve the contract for stadium lighting for Eagle Stadium.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion further here from the group? Okay, call the roll, Mr. Root.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Just a couple informational items from Jeff as well. We have some construction update from the middle school, and he's also going to speak very briefly about the transportation request for proposal that came in on Wednesday. Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Spicer. Quick construction update. We had our first meeting with SHP to go over our program of requirements, which is it's an Excel spreadsheet, but it's deeper than that, that kind of based on our enrollment, based on the size of the building, how many classrooms do we get, what kind of classrooms, how many offices, all those kind of things. So Charlie Janikin and a couple of his staff with SHP came in and met with us last week. We've got another meeting with him on Monday to continue that process. It's really the basis of beginning that design. And then on Thursday, it's Thursday, right? Thursday next week, our team is going and visiting 3 newer middle/junior high schools in the city to kind of get some ideas and some things like that. We also, on Monday of this week, had our CM interviews, our construction manager interviews. The 3 firms, as I mentioned last month, were Conger, HGC, and Turner. I wish I could tell you who was going to be successful, but that's sitting in OFCC's procurement right now. I had hoped we would be able to announce who the successful firm was, and quite honestly, I think we'll probably know tomorrow, but I can't say anything tonight. So, but it's coming soon. So we're excited about that, about getting them on board and continuing that process of starting the design of this new middle school.
Was there one that distanced themselves from the other 3? I know you can't get into details.
I'll be honest with you. I felt really comfortable. You know, I was a little, I don't want to say anxious going into the architect interviews, you know, because I felt like 2 of the 3 of the architects really stood out above. But it was kind of fun to go through this because I felt like they all had different strengths and weaknesses, but I was really confident that all 3 of them would be more than capable of doing a great job for us on the school. So that's a great thing to go into when you've got, you know, kind of like we were talking about, you know, our candidates when we hired Krista, is to have, you know, you get great candidates, you feel confident that any of the 3 could have done the job, but, you know, we're going to be happy with who I think it's going to be. So the CM process, it's different from the architect because there's a financial piece to it. So that they price out their pre-construction staffing, their construction staffing, their bond costs, trailers, dumpsters, cleaning, a whole list of things. And that becomes a piece of it. And then there's a scoring matrix that you do on their qualifications. And it's 60% based on their qualifications and 40% based on the financial piece. So it's not necessarily the low bidder, but if you're the low bidder, you got a little bit of a head start because that's 40% of the scoring. So then 4 people, 2 from the state, 2 from the district, do the qualification scoring, and then that goes to procurement. And then we're waiting on procurement to kind of fill out all the scoring sheet and then get back to us. So that's kind of where we stand. So it's a little more complicated than how the architect scoring went.
It's just something I learned in the CAT meetings a couple years ago or 3 years ago, how involved the state is in some of this. They're greatly involved.
Yep.
It's not your decision.
No, it's not. And again, there's, you know, I'm not even the sole decision maker from the district. It's, you know, there were multiple people in the room. I think the state had 5 people, 4 or 5 people, 2 of which were scorers, and the district had maybe 7 that were in the room, and again, of which 2 were scorers.
Thank you.
Any other questions on middle school?
No, that was about a 6-hour process from the time we started the interviews until we concluded the conversations and the companies were scored. So.
Transportation RFP. The transportation proposals were due on Tuesday. We received 1 proposal, which was a little bit disappointing, to be honest with you. However, I'm still working through it a little bit, but the proposal that we received from Peterman was very favorable. They proposed a 0 increase for the first year. They've also proposed a credit of up to $150,000 a year towards field trips and athletic trips, which will be nice. There's some investment in new buses and things like that. They did have some comments about the proposed contract we've got in there with the terms and conditions that I've got to work through. Nothing's jumped out at me that I think is a problem, but we'll work through that here over the next month, and then we'll look to bring it to Building and Grounds, obviously, in May, and then to the board for approval in May. But I think it's a good proposal, and I'm really happy with what we saw. So, all right. No questions?
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we come to our second public participation section here. When you come to the podium, you state your name. You've got 3 minutes. We've got the new countdown clock that we know works now, so
You got it.
we're off and running. Do you have anybody?
I do have two. Randy Klein.
Randy Klein, 939 Riverside Drive in Milford, 27 years in the district. Grandfather of the student. Thank you for Melissa and Paul for working towards the ability for the community. For the community to be able to review materials. That's really great. It's a great thing. The sensitivity of that is good. Okay. A couple of meetings back, there was discussed a renewal of Milford's legal representation. It came before the board. And board member Jerry Combs asked for a decision to be tabled until the current law firm, which had represented Milford schools for about 20 years, could be reviewed against other possible representation. Other board members asked whether Milford would lose effective representation should the contract not immediately be renewed. Now, in my recollection, the treasurer said yes, which did not make sense to me at the time, because the current law firm, which had been with us for 20 years, would not say no if we came to them during that review period needing help. So where does this, I want to know where this issue stands right now. Where does it stand regarding representation? Did we look at anybody else? Did we review the current legal firm that we have? And my recollection also said that the treasurer said there was only 3 law firms that he was aware of in the state of Ohio that did this type of educational law work. That didn't sound right either to me, and so just an easy investigation on the internet, I found at least 8 large law firms that practice education law throughout the state, as well as about 60 lawyers in Cincinnati itself that we could look at. So I may be wrong on some of that, but I think it's an important issue, and I'll tell you why. Today, there are a lot of issues that are impacting local schools, such as that are making some grandparents and parents and community members angry. One of the things is being addressed regarding these materials being reviewed. But social justice issues, like critical race theory, which has been brought up here, sexual topics, comprehensive sex education, and thirdly, behavior and relationship modification, such as through social and emotional learning. These areas are being addressed by and promoted by the Ohio School Boards Association. If you look at some of their materials, you'll see they really get into this stuff in a heavy way, and also by the Ohio High School Athletic Association. In my mind, at the expense of the proper emphasis on academics. May I remind the board that at the university level, activist administrators have, will we just, one more minute, please?
No, sir.
Well, anybody who would like to hear the rest, please contact me. I have more.
Very good, thank you.
Can I follow up? I'll follow up with some of this at the end,
Okay.
under the discussion part.
Yeah, that's fine. Second?
Paul Chambers.
Paul Chambers, 990 Business Route 28. So I spoke last month on, sorry if that's not working. Spoke last month, I introduced myself as a somewhat former employee of the district, classroom educator. I then spoke on topics involving bullying within the district. And I requested a committee to be formed, something to be at least looked into, maybe have some dialogue, because I felt that there was a lack thereof that led up to this whole thing happening. I even emailed the board members and thanked all of them for the extended time. Probably the reason for the school, the clock now, sorry. But you can bill me for it. But only one had actually bothered to respond back. And I took that as, you know, maybe the school board, as I spoke last month, and others are not taking the situation of bullying serious. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, I think dialogue needs to happen. Simple bit of contact would have worked. Sometimes doing the right thing means that one has to put their pride aside. Some in this district have yet to learn that valuable lesson. Instead of silence, immaturity, and ignorance, those are the chosen paths that I think that some have taken. When there's an easily remedy for this situation to bring closure, I am happy to hear about the committees that are being formed to involve the public. That is great. I've spoken to several of my previous colleagues within the district, all showing support for a person that is held out of the district. And yet, no action has been taken by those that can take action. Not one email, not one phone call, not a single approach by any of those involved to right this wrong. What's the holdup? Is there fear with those within this administrative building or in the district of doing something because it's right? That's what I've come to believe. If so, then some of the assumptions in this public are more closely connected to the truth than not then. It is my plan to go, it was my plan to go scorched earth last month and provide much more detail and evidence of what is wrong in our district. I chose not to, and I'm not one for throwing people's names out and throwing them under the bus, but my patience is somewhat growing thin. I again respectfully ask that some wrongs are set right, accountability is taken, and maybe some apologies can be thrown out there, and a new approach is embraced for the sake of the district. And I, just like 10 seconds, I would also like to say that, and thank you to the board for allowing me to speak again. There were parents and students and other people in this building last month that noticed some bad body language. I think professionalism and good body language by our board and others can be taken into consideration. Thank you.
That's all I have.
That's it? Okay. Thank you. Next regular board meeting is May 19th, 2022, 6 p.m. in this room. I'm going to open the floor to anyone for discussion.
If I may.
Go right ahead.
To follow up on Mr. Klein's request about the legal representation, Treasurer Ray did compile a list of those that are practicing ed law, did send it to board members, so they have that in their possession. I would like to note that no one locally, we've had contact, Southwest Ohio, if you will, no one's done a request for proposal, so no one actually had an actual request for proposal to put out there. So it's now in the hands of the boards to kind of make a decision on where to go next. I would like to note that from the superintendent's perspective, we are very pleased with Ennis and Britton, whom we currently work with, but that doesn't mean we can't look and shouldn't look and et cetera. So just wanted to make sure that we touched on that. You mentioned a little bit about social justice, CRT. We've been an open book for a long time, at least a year, if not more. All of our curriculum is online. We don't do it. We do not do comprehensive sex ed. I brought that up within the last year, that we don't do comprehensive sex ed, and that if you had questions about the sex ed program, you could contact Paul or Rob. And then, of course, we've started to have a discussion about SEL with a small group of folks, and yeah, so we're good there. The Ohio High School Athletic Association, you mentioned that. I did send some things out to board members today, a little bit about that. There is a policy that they have regarding, I think it's transgender students, athletes, et cetera. It's been in place since, I think, 15, 16. You know, in order for us to participate in any post-season tournament, we have to belong to the Ohio High School Athletic Associations, et cetera. So I just wanted to put that piece out there and follow up there. So I think I've got that, everything that you had mentioned, Mr. Klein. Mr. Chambers, we do have a committee to be formed. Potentially bullying might be something that's on there that will be tackled. I will say that I did anticipate that you might be here, and so I do have numbers that have been reported, cases of bullying. For 18-19, we had 1. 19-20, we had 3. 20-21, we had 1. And then we just had to pull that data. Currently for this school year, there is a report of 3 at this time. We agree with you that it should be taken seriously, and if I'd be happy to reach out and talk to you about that if you're willing. Thank you.
So, Mr. Klein, we received a list 2 days ago? Today.
Today, I sent it out today.
Was it today? Okay. I thought it was 2 days ago. Well, those days ran together of, I believe, 6.
There's 7 on there.
7?
Yeah.
7 attorneys. So, Mr. Rabe did do a little bit more background and has delivered that to us. And our plan is to evaluate our current relationship and then understand how we can evaluate a potential new relationship with one of these 7. I can't sit here today and tell you that the current legal representation is bad or good. John has worked with them for how long now? For the past 18 months?
I've worked with them for 15 or more years.
Okay. So I can't ignore that you've got a great relationship with them and that things have gone well. I just simply wanted to make sure that we are evaluating everything in the district that's the way we've always done it. And that's the impetus for this. So we've got a little bit more information than we did. It's taken us a little while, and now it's time for us to take some action to find out if, in fact, we have the appropriate legal representation or if we need to look at something different. So stay tuned for that. It doesn't happen overnight. I consider it a very, very, very important decision for our district. That's why it was brought up in the very first meeting by us. So. For sure, for sure. And you know, look, the reason why the timer's here, Paul might have had something to do with that last board meeting. We just have to really stay really consistent here. So just, I think everyone respects that, and we just got a little bit off track, and you know, hopefully you'll accept a little bit of apologies there from the board itself, because we let it get a little bit out of hand before, and it's not to discount whatever was coming out of Paul's mouth. It was just very simply, we need to stick to 3 minutes and just thank everyone for respecting it. Yeah, I'm glad you addressed it. It's still a loose end. And thanks again, Brian.
Can I add a couple things to that too? Since I think I was the one that initiated the question back at that meeting. I've also been talking to people from different districts to see who they use and what formats that they use. I have a couple other names of recommended attorneys that other districts are currently using outside of this list of 7 that Brian provided us. And also to see how districts are doing it. So when, on that January organizational meeting, the vote was for the board attorney. And many districts have a separate attorney for the board, to represent the board, to help us as a board look at contracts. I mean, we're not contract attorneys. So some of that works on behalf of the board, separate from the school district. The school district has representation. So while the board is not supposed to be a rubber stamp of the district, but more of a checks and balances, so I think we as a board need to explore that as to what our role of having a representation for the board is, and look at that.
Other comments? Okay, I'm going to try to speed this up because this is time when I do my good news report. A lot of this has already been covered, so I'll be quick where I can. Little Mermaid played 3 sold-out shows, and that, let me tell you, if you got a chance to go to see those, that theater program is definitely on the rise here. They did a great job. Likewise, down at the junior high, they had their musical since the last board meeting. I think it was last week. It was Schoolhouse Rock Live, and that place was also pretty full, and they got some pretty rave reviews there as well. The high school choir was in Nashville. They got to go to the Country Music Hall of Fame and perform, also at Vanderbilt. And they got to record in the studios where Elvis Presley and Dolly Parton had done a lot of their music, so that's pretty cool as well. Here's a new one that wasn't mentioned. The high school chess team completed their competitive season as the division champions and finished 2nd place in the city to Madeira in a 10-minute overtime tiebreaker blitz. So that's a good sport and good competition. And right now, it's not part of the All-Sport Trophy. It used to be when we were in the GMC. It's no longer there. We need to get that back because we could use those points. Tuesday, a group of board members got to attend the Senior Academic Convocation. We have 70 students in the class of 2022 with a 4.5 or higher grade point average. And at that ceremony, they got plaques and graduation pins that they'll be wearing on their gowns during graduation, designating them as summa cum laude award winners. Congratulations to all of them. Outstanding careers, each one of them at Milford High School. We talked a little bit about Brandon Baker down at Skyline. That was a great event. It kind of kicked things off right, and we're really excited about Brandon, what he's going to bring to the program, and hopefully take us to the next level. Jeff spoke about OFCC. We had a meeting on March 21st, and SHP was selected as our architect engineering firm. We had 3 very capable people, very capable of doing that. And then last Monday, the 18th, we spent 6 hours in this room listening to OFCC. Stay tuned because that'll happen either tomorrow or early next week. I believe we'll have all the results and we'll be putting that out publicly. Speaking of construction, we're anticipating that before the next board meeting, we're going to be moving some dirt around over on Charity Lucas Field. Maumee Bay Turf Center will begin construction on that project. If not next week, hopefully the week after that. We're trying to get the last of the ducks in a row. And I think, Jeff, you have a meeting tomorrow on that? Yes. Yep, okay. Just to reiterate for the public, that is a 100% privately funded artificial playing surface. That was nothing from the taxpayers. And the last thing on good news, it's kind of a mid-spring update on the ECC All-Sport Trophy. I know I've been banging that going pretty hard, but this is pretty important for our athletes, of which there are within our district about 1,000 student athletes, so that represents a large part of our population from 7 through 12. First place, tied for first place, baseball, softball, and boys lacrosse. So we've got 3 teams that are tied for first place. We've got girls lacrosse is in 6th place right now. Boys tennis is in 5th place. And track and field is kind of the last event that we do, so it all comes out at the league meet, which is very much at the end of the season, so there'll probably be a contingent of us over there cheering our brains out to try to get the necessary points to lock up that all-sport trophy. Dates to remember, senior awards are tonight. They started about 28 minutes or 38 minutes ago, so if you're supposed to be there, you're late. The prom is Saturday at the Oasis Golf and Country Club. The theme for this year is the Roaring 20s. And I looked at that and I thought, oh, that's cool. And then I realized that was 100 years ago. So that is pretty cool. The Fine Arts Fair is Friday and Saturday. Friday it'll be from 6 to 8 at the high school and 10 to 2 on Saturday. We'll have about 1,500 pieces of artwork there. Teacher Appreciation Day is May 3rd around the district. We're going to be honoring all our teachers and staff with a celebration of excellence, basically. Milford Flight Night is May 12th at the Oasis Golf and Country Club. Anthony Munoz and Jim Breach are the speakers. We're looking for a big turnout. If you haven't got your tickets already, I suggest that you do it because very well may be a sellout. Graduation is May 21st at 4 o'clock at the Centos Center. And the last day of school is May 26th. And the one last thing, June the 2nd in downtown Milford is the start of Frontier Day. It starts with the parade, the official beginning of summer, and the festival continues all through the weekend. So we're excited about that for the community, and that's always a good time and time to relax from the end of the school year. That is all I have. That should be enough. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we are going to go into executive session as a board. So I need a motion to go into executive session to enter executive session for the purpose of considering collective bargaining matters.
So moved.
Second.
No discussion, I'm guessing, so call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, we will be returning to this room sometime later in the evening. We will not be voting on anything in the executive session. The only thing we will vote on in here is the motion to adjourn. So we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much. We will see you on May 19th at 6 o'clock in this room for the next board meeting. Thank you very much.